Hey everybody, Tracy Brown. And it's been a little while since I've talked about binge eating. And I don't know, I don't talk too much about tips and strategies and stuff like that, but actually today I am because it's been a while, a little bit, not a long time, but a little bit since I've talked about it, and especially in depth. So, those of you struggling with that, I want you to know that I hear you and I see you. And this video has been on my heart to make for about a week. I just didn't want to feel rushed to do it. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Brown. I'm a somatic, attuned eating, intuitive eating teacher, nutrition therapist, maybe an embodiment teacher probably, I guess. I don't know all the labels you want to give me, but, basically I essentially help people make peace with food and weight. And I've been doing that for about 12 years. I've recovered from my own various disorder eating, including some binge eating. This is well in the 21st year of when I started recovery. I've been, I think, recovered around 15 years, and I wasn't in treatment like years and years and years and years. By the way, so everybody needs to have hope that that being free from all this is totally possible. So no, say it right off the bat. So when it comes, I actually going to have a longer blog post attached to this so you can read more, because I don't want to make this topic skimpy in terms of the cycle that we can easily get in, as well as how to get out of it. And I want you guys to have a place of knowing. So there'll be more attached to this later. I haven't finished it up, but it's coming. So anyway, what I want to say about binge eating is that it is a strategy of restriction. And people don't often think that like binge eating is actually about restriction, but it is. All eating disorders and all disorder eating come from a place of not enoughness, like not getting enough of their needs met, not getting fully heard, not having the resources they need in terms of coping. And then it turns into food and feeling like that, who they are is too much, and what they need is too much, and they're not seen enough. And so that can turn externalized with food. So, and I also want to say to you that of all the people I've ever worked with who struggle with binge eating, I can only think of two people that hadn't in the recent months before they came to see me had been food restriction. But mentally, they had been thinking, I need to go on a diet, I need to control my food, I need to fix it. And so I guess I would say I've had 0% of the time with my clients who were struggling with deprivation-driven eating or binge eating disorder, that there wasn't an element of either physical or mental restriction that was happening at the same time or had just previously happened within the previous week, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, that had been on some kind of diet, often prescribed by probably a well-meaning professional, or even come out of treatment, come out of eating disorder treatment, food restricted, because their bodies didn't match the criteria, for, let's say anorexia. And so they were mistreated. I mean, literally, mistreated and mistreated. That's not humane to do that, to look at a body and decide, how they need, what their treatment plan is. And so, one, I want you to hear all that. If you've been in that position, I'm so, so sorry. That was wrong. And I don't have enough apologies. I can't say enough about that most people who have come and done treatment with people, for the majority of places, have been a lot of times underfed, which triggers more disordered eating. So I'm so sorry if that's happened to you. But there is a better way, and that's what this video is about, is recognizing that binge eating, if we want to have tips and tools and strategies to heal that, the first thing we've got to think about is we've got to end the restriction. So if you're dieting, we've got to stop. If you're trying to cut corners with pushing off your hunger, or if you're trying to somehow make it by with less to make up for a binge the day before, we can't continue that cycle. That's tip number one. The second thing I want to talk to you about is how important it is to put weight loss on the back burner. And even though you may not like your body, that's not a requirement for recovery. It really isn't. The requirement is that we put weight loss on the back burner. And the first step really is like, hating the body less. Like having enough just humane respect for yourself to say like, I don't love this body. You don't have to, but I want to treat it respectfully enough to get my energy needs met so I don't binge. If that's the least we can do, that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start. Start with that. And of course that would involve attuned eating and intuitive eating, which is what I teach people. And not just like teach them that you should do that, but actually teach them that how to do it, the hows. And so I'm going inside because my dog is barking. So sorry about that. And you don't want to see me pick him up. It would be quite the wrestling match to get him to come back in. So we're not going to do that. But instead, we're just going to keep on rolling with this video. And, so what I want to say about the attuned eating process is sometimes it's hard to know your signals. And that's where people are really surprised to hear me sometimes say like, sometimes it takes some gentle structure with your eating. Not necessarily meal planning. Some people maybe really, really need that, but that's usually a higher level care, but being consistent with your eating. So, if you've never done that before, then that's something I want you to know about as well. Some of the other things I want to talk to you about is, working on your weight biases, meaning we all have them. I mean, I've worked for 20 years ridding myself of weight and fat prejudice, and I like to say that I don't have any of that in my pores and in my cells anymore, because when I see people of all shapes and sizes, I just see people of all shapes and sizes. There's no good or better or worse. And it's just not a thing that I think about too much. But that's come from lots of years of catching myself. So if that's something I want you to think about minimally, that you have to start with as well. And there's lots of other little things. I would say that if you're struggling, definitely if you're really struggling with binge eating disorder, you need to have a treatment team. You need to have a therapist, nutrition therapist, a physician to help track your labs, and if there's any underlying and other comorbid things, if you have PCOS or if you're struggling with obviously depression or any other things, you need to have the team support that you deserve. And, whether it's a place that has all it together or you're picking people in your community or online that can help you with that, do that. Don't think that you don't deserve that. People of all shapes and sizes need that level of support sometimes. And I've had all that before. Sometimes it was one person here, there, sometimes all together. But if you need that much help, there's no shame about that. Get it and utilize it so you can move on with your life. And I would also say, think about your environment. Let's detoxify all this. Like if you've got apps, if you follow certain people, gurus, whatever you do, the diet mentality, get rid of it out of your environment, your system, your computer, your phone, your whatever. Get it out of your life, and start to put in things like these videos. I have a bunch of podcasts that I've been on. There's a bunch of people who have really, really great podcasts. I'll have some links to that in the post I'm going to put to find some awesome people. Get your Instagram full of amazing people. If you've got books in your house that are diet mentality, get it out. If you've got clothes that don't fit, get rid of them, or at least box them up and put them where you don't have to see them every day. People look for tools and tips. And I think the last part is, recognize that you do deserve the help you need, as well as if you go to a provider and there is a way that you feel like you're getting treatment that's not appropriate for what you need, and if you feel like there's any bias against you because of your size, fire them and move on. Don't mess around. If a physician says, tell a physician you have an eating disorder, and they say something and they look at you and I trust you. I know that you're sensitive, and I know that you know if they're not believing you. You could ask them. I wouldn't totally mind read, but if you don't feel like they're going to take you seriously because of anything to do with your body size, get out and let's move on to somebody better. And I'm happy to help you if you need help finding somebody, helping a good physician, a good therapist, that kind of thing. And I would say lastly, let's start to think about, all disordered eating, all dieting. It's a strategy, and it's a container for things that feel too uncomfortable to feel. or to know how to manage. And that's not your fault, but now that we know that that's a thing, we need to start getting some other very specific to you tools to be able to learn how to ride the wave of emotion. Whether it's somatic work like I do, it could be the day-to-day stuff like, again, feeling your environment. Like I don't want to see your, if you think about the 5 people you spend the most time with, and if most of them aren't people who are body neutral and don't have obsession about food, you might want to rethink like your crowd and really start to think about people you can get better support from just in your environment. And also, that's one level of self-care. That's an external resource. But, think about, I want to start seeing you have more internal resources, learn how to feel more comfortable inside your skin and do that. And so I have a lot of meditations about that on my website. There's a lot of people who do work like that too, of learning how from the inside out, be able to, manage their nervous systems to where the emotion isn't so overwhelming that they feel like that you have to eat to deal with that, or you have to diet to deal with that. And I guess those are my tips and tools for binge eating. And those are just like skimming the surface. Not all the, I mean, the video would last probably 6 hours if I did all the little details of every little person I can think of that I've ever worked with and the things we did. But I want you to know that there are so much more out there. But if you take these few things, giving up dieting, at least accepting right now you're not going to try to lose weight, getting the correct support, getting your environment free of diet things and things that just make you feel bad. Understand that we need to build some more emotional tools and capacity so that eating isn't your only strategy to feel calm or better or soothed. If you just start with that stuff, you've already gone on the right track. I'll give you one last little tip. And this is a story of mine, is that I was in college and I was binge eating at the time. And a lot of it was from deprivation. Some of it was emotional. I would say 25% emotional, 75%, no, I'm lying. Honestly, probably 90% deprivation, like not eating after the first half of the day. But I was fooling myself, like, well, I'm not restricting as much as I used to, so it's not that bad. Or I can get by with this. And by the end of the day, I'm eating a roll of cookie dough a day, and I was doing that for like 5 years. Anyway, one day I'd already like restricted, already had binged, already over-exercised, and I still had like just a lot of emotion that day. So it's not that there wasn't emotion with that binge, it was just that there was so much deprivation, and I was also emotional for something that I've been trying to suppress. And there's nothing, no other tool, no other diet mentality disorder tool left to use that day. And I was feeling so uncomfortable, like there was like this vibrating misery in my body. And I know what to do. So I literally lay on the floor. I don't know if you can see my floor here. It was a floor like this, but it wasn't that color. But hard, cold tile. It was my bathroom. This little trailer I lived in. And I remember, laying on the floor and just thinking, this is it. This is just going to engulf me, envelop me, and I can't tolerate any of this, and it's going to kill me. And I was, when you're almost so like in angst and you're so sad and you're so freaked out and you can't, it's almost so much you can't even identify what it is and you can't cry, but you feel like you're going to explode. That's kind of how it felt. And I was laying on this floor and I laid there like, oh my gosh, if I don't do anything about this food, restrict tomorrow or over-exercise or whatever, I'm going to, and again, I still had a lot of white prejudice, and I thought the worst thing ever was to gain more weight, because then if I gain weight, then nobody would love me. And, looking back, I can have a lot of compassion for myself, but if you think about that, it's pretty bad to think that the worst thing that ever happened to you is to gain weight, but that's what I thought. And I also felt hatred toward myself for feeling that way, because I knew that was judgmental and awful, and I hated it. But anyway, having all these feelings. And I laid there and had all these thoughts and these feelings. And eventually what started to happen after about, 10, 15 minutes is that I actually started to feel my body. Like laying there on the floor with my belly full of cookie dough, feeling like the world was going to end because I'll never have a boyfriend, and, nobody's ever going to like me because of what I was doing with my food, and I was the worst person ever. I was laying there, and I started to feel like, oh, there's coldness underneath my heels, and that's kind of hard. That doesn't feel good. And then I was like, oh, my butt's kind of numb because I've been laying here so long. And then I could feel like the hardness in my shoulder blades from the floor. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm here now in my body. And I could be in my body for a second. And it was the first time I'd ever probably been embodied, maybe my whole life, but especially in the last 5-6 years from all the tornado of hell, which is, and being a chronic dieter and worried about your body all the time. And having, a history of disordered eating behind that as well. And I just laid there and I recognized, oh my gosh, it was the worst thing ever that happens to me is that I feel these sensations and I weigh more. Like, oh, what's the worst thing ever? Really, my brain was working for the first time probably in years. I was like, well, okay, what happens if I weigh whatever is in my head is the worst thing ever? I'm like, well, I was like literally days away from getting my degree. I'm like, well, I'll still have that, and I can take that away from me. I do have some work ethic. I'll go out and work, and I'll support myself somehow. I still have my family, even though we're not all perfect. At least I'll have something. I won't be totally alone, probably. Do care about me. So I can start to work through, like, if that's the worst thing that ever happens to me, I'm still going to be alive and I'm going to be okay. I might not be the cultural ideal. People might not like me because of what I look like or whatever. These are just my, again, 20-year-old thoughts here, 21-year-old thoughts, 20 years ago. But, that isn't the worst thing that's going to happen, is that I have a belly full of cookie dough and then I gain weight. That it would be the worst thing ever if, the things I worked so hard for were a waste. Or that I totally isolated myself from at least my family. That would be terrible. And so I really started getting a little bit more perspective. But that would never have happened if I hadn't been able to feel all that sensation and emotion from after a binge versus doing something about it. So what I want to say is that I'm not expecting you to do something like that, because I was alone. It was not the best way to learn how to do that strategy, which is to learn a little smidge of emotional tolerance. But that was one thing that was a pivotal moment in recovering from some of that binge eating, is being able to learn I've got to learn how to feel emotion. And once I did a little bit of that and I recognized it didn't totally kill me, I had more courage to do it. So that was just a little bit of an end to this little story lecture, whatever, on some tools to help you with binge eating. But I want you to recognize that you don't have to do all that by yourself. I wouldn't. And again, that was a whole 20-minute process of just noticing that I actually was in a body and felt stuff. And to also recognize that it wasn't the end of the world that I felt stuff. And sometimes it feels that way, and I totally get that. So if this video at all was helpful for you, and the accompanying blog post I'm going to be posting here below it here in a little bit, to know that feelings won't kill us, and they are our doorways in to actually making peace with our food, and eventually can give us even more courage to one day, hey, even liking your body. It's totally possible. So I'm hoping this was helpful for you today, and it gives you just a little bit more hope and a little bit more courage to try something just a tiny bit different today, whatever that is, whether that's your thinking, whether that's what you expose yourself to, whether that's that you decide, I'm not going to skip breakfast today, or hey, I'm not going to push off my lunch as long as I normally do, even though there's a strong part of me that wants to try to save up the calories because I might binge anyway. Don't do it. Let it be. Eat what you know you need to eat to be satisfied, and give yourself a chance to listen to your body and see what happens. I'm hoping this was helpful. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you need more help, you can contact me below. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.